Auburn faces another big challenge this weekend when they welcome LSU to the Plains, and Gus Malzahn with some interesting talking points when addressing the media today. And to highlight some of those, I bring in James Crepea on the Plains right now. And James, we got to start with the quarterback situation once again. Gus Malzahn said Sean White was going to be the starter. However, the other quarterbacks, more specifically John Franklin III, still under evaluation. What do you make of that?
Well, I think that in fairness to both quarterbacks, I mean, you have to be honest. A lot of what Sean White went through against Texas A&M, as far as the struggles that he went through, he didn't have that many, and the few that he did have, to be honest, really didn't have to do with him. It had to do with protections, and even the protections didn't have to do necessarily with the offensive line. Gus Malzahn was very forthright both after the game and again today, saying that it really had to do with coaching. It really had to do with adjustments more than it had to do with the offensive line or it had to do with Sean. When it comes to Myles Garrett getting to him or Deshaun Hall getting to him on a couple of sacks, you talked about the pass rush in particular. Those were issues that came down to coaching. Now, yes, Sean missed a couple of throws. Hey, that's going to happen. Wide receivers had some drops. That's going to happen too. So you can't blame Sean White entirely for a lot of the issues that he had against Texas A&M. Obviously, John Franklin III went in the fourth quarter, performed well, moved the offense, but at the same time, the game wasn't as competitive by the time he got in the game. So you have to contextualize it. It's not to take away from what John Franklin III did. When he went in there, the bottom line is Texas A&M's defensive line had to play very differently, particularly on that first drive and second drive than they had to when Sean White was in the game. So he presents a different dynamic. But some of the throws that he had, yeah, some were good, some were bad. He only had about 8 throws. But it's hard to really put a lot of stock in that because, again, the game really wasn't as competitive at the time.
And James, you bring up the point, bad play calling. Gus Malzahn even called himself out today during the press conference and talked about Clemson loss and the Texas A&M loss being perhaps the worst of his Auburn coaching career. Expand upon that for me.
Yeah, again, he took a lot of the blame for it personally, said he felt the pain of the fan base, understands that, and he feels that these two losses combined are the worst that in his time here at Auburn, both as head coach and as coordinator in his 7 years here. And you can understand that, and this is certainly going to be a very significant game coming up. But it doesn't change the fact that Auburn is still, 2-10 in the last 12 SEC games. They haven't beaten a Power 5 team at home in over a season and a half now. It's been quite a while. So you have to look at it and say, all right, yes, he's taking the blame and he's fallen on the sword for that. He talked about being close. The players say that too, and they reiterate what Malzahn's message is. So they're clearly buying into it a lot. But that said, close is not going to be good enough for very much longer if this persists. Now, obviously, it could change all in a heartbeat if they go out and beat LSU, get to 2-2 and 1-1 in the SEC. Then you get a guaranteed win basically following up after that with ULM. You set up at 3-2 going into a road game with Mississippi State. This team could be a 4-2 team only in a couple of weeks. So from a positive outlook, you could say, hey, it's only 1-2. It's only 3 weeks into the season, and they played 2 teams in the top 10. So that said, there's a big challenge there. On the other hand, you could say, 2 top 10 teams, but this is a team that's supposed to be competing with them. This is a team that's supposed to be seeing offensive progress.
Yeah, and LSU presenting a whole new set of challenges offensively and defensively. What did Gus Malzahn touch upon in the focal point for this team heading into this game Saturday?
Well, from the LSU offense, obviously it starts and ends with Leonard Fournette, and Auburn is probably the team that knows that more than any in the SEC last year. What Fournette was able to do in Baton Rouge in last year's game was really remarkable. Didn't even play the whole game and had over 3 touchdowns, over 220 yards rushing, nearly 230. Expect to see Leonard Fournette early and often, and they know that. Obviously, a change of quarterback over there at LSU as well, but they know that the running game is going to be their strong point. Defensively, LSU presents quite a bit of challenges for an Auburn offense that's struggling. Again, you just walked away and saw them how they performed against Myles Garrett and Deshaun Hall of Texas A&M and a talented defensive line from that group as well. Well, now you have Arden Key, who's leading the SEC in sacks, second in the country in sacks, a very talented pass rusher, and Tre'Davious White, who's one of the best cover corners in the entire country as well. Auburn's going to have its hands full. This is the number 18 team in the country for a reason. I know that they haven't gotten off to a great start, certainly that they were hoping for, and a change of quarterback already as well. But this is going to be a big test for Auburn.
All right, James, thank you so much. All great points there. Kickoff set for 5 o'clock. We will see you on the Plains.